What is the difference between psychological and physiological drug dependence? Psychological implies mental. This means that it's in the person's brain. This is a very real thing though, because a person can develop a crutch, reliance on their drug of choice to help cope with stress. For example, a person who's worked hard during the week, maybe a manual laborer who is tired, exhausted, and can rely on, let's say, Percocet or Vicodin to help ease not only the pain in their body, but to ease the anxieties of life as well. So in this situation, I would call it a psychological dependence. They're rewarding themselves for their use. The physiological part of it, this is the nuts and bolts of the medicine behind it. This is where a person, if, let's just say the same person continues to use on a regular basis, if they were to stop, let's say they use every day after work. And let's say they were to stop though, and they went the whole weekend without, they would feel very uncomfortable, typically before even the weekend ended. It's usually about 24 hours after abstaining with the opioids that a person goes into withdrawal. By Monday they'd be feeling very uncomfortable, and this is not in their head, this is not made up, this is not psychological in any which way. This is a very real thing, that their body is going through a physiological change where there's an imbalance of neurotransmission in the brain, and the brain is trying to compensate for the lack of the stimulant, lack of the drug of choice. And instead of the feel-good neurotransmitters like dopamine, the neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, or otherwise known as noradrenaline, kick in as a way to try to make up this imbalance. The problem is that the person feels very uncomfortable when there's an excess of this type of neurotransmission. So the physiologic withdrawal syndrome is very, very uncomfortable. The person starts craving, they just want to feel better, and it's a higher likelihood that they're going to relapse, because the quickest way to feel better is to use their drug of choice. So to summarize, there's a difference between psychological and physiological drug dependence. Some drugs are also stronger at this, so there's a different balance of it. I should say before concluding that with some drugs like let's say cannabis, marijuana, there tends to be less of a physical dependence or physiologic dependence and more of a psychological dependence. So it's more of a reward situation there. They don't go through much of a withdrawal syndrome. There can be, but not to the same degree that somebody's going through opioid withdrawal, for example. So it depends on the drug of choice. But the psychological is their part. That part is there for any drug of choice, including alcohol. They feel uncomfortable just because they no longer have their reward, for example. And then there's the physiological or the physical part of the dependency, and that is what's going through in the body. There's the lack of the drug of choice, and there's actual changes, real changes that have occurred that causes them to feel unwell. So I hope that helps to describe the difference between the two, psychological and physiological or physical addiction.